just been informed that the courthouse people, because Senator Tillis' office is closed, we have no official business being able to go in and even on the way to go see if his office is closed and use the public restrooms that we pay for as citizens here. Senator Tillis, his staff, and the courthouse people have said we have no rightful business to enter this courthouse today because Senator Tillis' office is closed. Even if we just want to go and verify the fact that his office is closed, they won't let us in. They won't allow us to use the restrooms. Our government is doing everything it can to deny us our constitutional rights, even the right of redress of grievances with our senator who closed his office today purposely so that we could not even be here to use the restroom in the facility. And we need to take our government back from these people and control it with ourselves, we the people.
Hi, my name is Stephen Willeford. In November 5th, 2017, the worst mass shooting in Texas history. A man came in and started shooting and killing people in First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs. He had on Class 3 body armor, a ballistic bulletproof helmet. My daughter made me aware of the shooting. I ran across the street with my own AR-15. Had I been armed with anything less than an AR-15, I probably would have been counted among the dead. I had a shootout with him. I chased him 11.6 miles where he committed suicide. And I'm okay with that. But I'm here to fight for our rights to keep and bear arms and to call out the senators, our own senator from Texas, John Cornyn, and Thom Tillis here in North Carolina. I'm here to call them out because they're doing the wrong thing. They're selling us out. And so I'm here at this rally with the great people of North Carolina, and I love it. I would say go out and train yourself. Go out and I don't believe that there should be mandatory training to exercise your Second Amendment, but I believe that if you're going to run into gunfire, then you're going to need a little bit of training. So I don't advocate for any kind of law making it mandatory, but I do say, you know, if you're going to carry a gun and you're going to run into gunfire, then you should do a little training. Go to the range. It's like golfing, but for men. You know, we enjoy shooting. We enjoy the sport. Go out and enjoy it. Make it a family affair. You know, I train my kids, and my wife and I used to compete in competition. Just go out and enjoy shooting. It's a great sport. It's time to get rid of the rhinos in the Republican Party. It's time to get back, and it's time to take our rights back at the state level and then all the way up into the federal level.
To make a stand against our traitor Thom Tillis, who sold us out yesterday, along with several members of the House of Representatives, yet unnamed, who sold us out in the House and voted along with Democrat leftist gun control yesterday and today. That bill will probably be on the president's desk. He'll happily sign it, and they'll immediately turn around and start asking for more. Okay, so again, thank you all for being here and making a stand. If you do not know, Senator Tillis closed his office today because he did not want to hear from us. He did not even want his staff to hear from us, and apparently he told the courthouse people that because his office is closed, we are not here on official business, and therefore they will not even allow us in to see for certain whether his office is open and closed and use the restroom along the way. So I apologize that we did not prepare for porta potties or anything, because we did not expect that our government courthouse that we pay for with our tax dollars would be closed to us because they consider us not to be here on official business. That all being said, I want to introduce right now Paul Ballone, president of Grassroots North Carolina, who's been doing this far longer than I have. He's been doing this since 1994, and I've only been doing it since the early 2000s. So this is the man that I've learned everything I've learned, whether it be good or bad, from. And this is a man who's taken his knowledge and written a book about it, a book that's already been used successfully to win some things that have taken place across the state. Without further ado, I give you Paul Ballone, president of Grassroots North Carolina.
Thank you, sir. You know, Charles Dickens opened his novel, A Tale of Two Cities, by saying, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was a spring of hope, it was the winter of despair." That accurately describes not only our fight to defend the Second Amendment, but to defend mainstream America against the Marxists who would take it over. It's the best of times because yesterday we achieved what we fought over for decades. The Supreme Court decision in a 6-3 vote that even captured middling Chief Justice John Roberts, affirming that the Second Amendment does in fact guarantee a right to bear arms outside the home. This was a journey actually started by grassroots North Carolina back in 2012 when Alan Gurra, who won both the Heller and McDonald decisions, in which the Supreme Court affirmed an individual right to keep arms in the home. He approached me before the McDonald decision came down, asking me to recruit plaintiffs and run interference for a lawsuit to affirm a right to bear arms outside the home. You see, the problem was that the Heller and McDonald decisions only affirmed a right to keep and bear arms in the home, not outside. We sued Governor Beverly Perdue over North Carolina's then blanket state of emergency gun ban, which prohibited carrying firearms anytime there was a state of emergency, when you actually needed them most. The town of King in Stokes County,
My home, by the way.
had posted the entire town against carrying firearms in advance of a pending snowstorm. And then Governor Beverly Perdue declared a state of emergency statewide in advance of a hurricane on the opening day of dove season, making criminals out of thousands of dove hunters. So grassroots North Carolina and the Second Amendment Foundation sued. Well, the bad news is we won. I say it's bad news because it was intended to go to the Supreme Court to become precedent-setting law. And unfortunately, the state, reading the tea leaves, did not appeal the decision when we won. So it never went to the Supreme Court. It did allow us, however, to go back the next year and repeal the now unconstitutional state of emergency gun ban. So now, if there's a riot in Charlotte or Durham or here or wherever, you may carry firearms to protect yourself.
What year was that?
2012. And you can thank the Second Amendment Foundation and Grassroots North Carolina for that.
Yeah!
Dry mouth. So after several abortive attempts, at last the Supreme Court accepted a case on bearing arms outside the home and affirmed that the right does exist. This is potentially the end of may issue concealed handgun schemes like those in New York, New Jersey, and California, where they can decide whether or not you need a permit. But it's not the end of gun control. We will see battles about where you can carry, what you can carry, and a whole host of other potential gun bans. Because as Dickens said, it's also the worst of worlds. For example, yesterday, the United States United States Senate voted to pass the most draconian gun control measure in nearly 30 years. Red flag gun confiscation laws. States will be now bribed to pass them. Those are gun confiscation orders issued in ex parte hearings the accused may not even know is taking place, much less does he get a chance to defend himself in court. The first time many people are aware of the gun confiscation order that's been issued against them is when police show up to their door to confiscate their guns, which, by the way, killed a Maryland man. They passed restrictions on selling your private collection of firearms, all to increase the number of transactions captured by the National Instant Background Check System, where the ATF is now illegally creating a national gun registry, having recently admitted in a FOIA request to illegally retaining nearly 1 billion firearms records. The only way they could do that, and we rack up that many, a threefold increase since, I believe, 2016 to be exact, the only way they could do that is by capturing transactions and not expunging them from the NICS system as required by law. They want to use the so-called boyfriend loophole to increase the number of people prohibited from owning guns for not having committed felonies, but instead only misdemeanors. And they brought back waiting periods for one group of gun buyers, those under the age of 21. But how long do you think it will be before they try to add more people to that waiting period category? In fact, having now passed what some claim is relatively mild gun control, how long do you think it will be before they come back again claiming to close loopholes on all of it and more? It will only be hours, because the loophole they want to close is your ability to own firearms. And who gave them the ability to pass gun control? Traitor Thom Tillis and the Surrender Caucus.
Whoa!
Because in the Senate, they needed 60 votes to overcome a filibuster, 60 votes for cloture. But the Democrats hold only 50 seats, meaning they can't pass gun control without Republican help. But yesterday, they got Republican help, the 15 Republicans of the Surrender Caucus. 15 Republicans sold you out, including our own Richard, Benedict, Burr, and Traitor Thom Tillis. But Traitor Thom Tillis didn't just vote for the gun control the Senate passed yesterday, and which now passed the House today, after I wrote this.
He wrote it.
Yeah, I wish. I can assure you, I'm not on his Christmas card list. I haven't been since he was Speaker of the House, when I threatened to put a demonstration in his front yard in Cornelius, because I lived in his district. But at any rate, Traitor Thom didn't just vote for the gun control the Senate passed yesterday. Oh no, he helped write it. It was Traitor Thom. It was Traitor Thom, who Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who Mitch McConnell tasked with negotiating the so-called compromise with anti-gun Democrat Chris Murphy and others. It was Traitor Thom who continued selling you out even when Texas Republican John Cornyn walked out of talks. And make no mistake, this compromise is not compromise at all, it is capitulation. Because if it really was compromise, you would be getting something, but you aren't. What the Surrender Caucus has done is to give you capitulation. And when Traitor Thom found out that he would be called to account for selling out gun owners, who helped him narrowly win re-election, I believe it was 1.7% of the vote, in 2020, when he found out you would be here to petition for the redress of grievances guaranteed to you by the First Amendment, you know what he did? He closed his office to hide from you, making Tillis not only a traitor, but a coward. Now maybe you think we're too late. The gun control's already passed. Passed the Senate yesterday, passed the House today. But it's not too late to stop the next round of gun control that will inevitably follow this one, just as the so-called assault weapon ban followed the Brady Act in 1993 and 1994. We're here to tell Traitor Thom, the Surrender Caucus, and all politicians that we will never accept the erosion of our freedom, and that we have very, very long memories. Traitor Thom is figuring that because he's got 4 years to re-election, that we'll forget. I have bad news for him. I see a primary in his future.
Yes.
Now, you may be tempted to say that about Democrats and Republicans that there's not a dime's worth of difference between them. You might be tempted to sit out the 2022 elections, but don't, because we have a chance to replace Benedict Burr with a real pro-gun conservative, a guy I've met many times, and he is the real deal. So in November, you need to vote Ted Budd for the United States Senate. Yesterday, Cornyn claimed that what they passed would save lives, but that's nonsense, because as long as the left creates violent sociopaths and lets them wander loose, bails them out, yep, they will find means of committing mass killings. And as long as we offer them gun-free victim disarmament zones, those sociopaths will be drawn to them. They will seek them out, because they too are cowards who want disarmed victims. So now I'm going to introduce to you a man who knows that only an armed citizenry can deter and stop mass murderers, because he's experienced it himself. He is the quintessential good guy with a gun who stopped mass murder at the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs, Texas. I want to introduce the hero of Sutherland Springs, Stephen Willeford.
So I want to say first, for how many people here have heard my story? How many people have seen the video? Okay, for those of you that still have your hand up, it's the wrong situation. There was no video. That was in the West Freeway Church of Christ with Jack Wilson, another great Texan that took care of a shooter within a church. Mine, I was at my home across the street from First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs when my daughter made me aware of gunfire. I quickly ran to my safe. I thought I was being a responsible gun owner, and I had my gun locked away. They want to pass legislation to force you to lock your guns away. It took me, and I timed it 3 different times, and the fastest of which, the 3 times to get my gun out of the safe and into action was 91 seconds. That was 1.5 minutes where I was hearing gunshots. That was 1.5 minutes that slowed me down, and it's the 1.5 minutes in my life that I regret the most. I grabbed a rifle, I grabbed a magazine, and people say, why would you grab an AR-15? And if you have the choice of a rifle or a pistol, and you know you're going to be in a gunfight, always choose a rifle. Amen. I ran across the street with just a handful of ammunition, shoving in a magazine, and running across the street and engaging a shooter with Class 3 body armor, a ballistic bulletproof helmet, multiple loaded magazines. He had just killed 26 people within the church, and I had 8 rounds. I truly believe that God, at that moment, was in control of everything, because I ran behind a truck. As I ran over there, I yelled out, and I believe it was God calling out a demon that was within him. I ran across the street. He started shooting at me. I ran behind a pickup truck to use it for cover. He hit the truck in front of me, shattered the windshield of the car behind me, and he hit the house behind me. I was able to put 6 out of 6 bullets on him, most of which were stopped by his body armor. He was able to get in his vehicle that was sitting in the middle of the street with the engine running and the driver's side door open. He put 2 more shots through the side window. I put a shot where it perceived his head to be and split across his forehead underneath the brim of his bulletproof helmet. He sped off, and I flagged down a truck. We chased him for 11.6 miles, and he committed suicide. But that's enough about me and what happened at that church. I truly believe God called me for that moment. Now we're at a point in this time where your government doesn't think that you have the right to defend yourself, and where the Uvalde Police Department sat outside the room refusing to go in for 51 minutes as children were dying. And they even arrested one of their own that was married to one of the teachers that tried to run in. He was a police officer. He tried to run in and rescue his wife that had called him. They stopped him. They confiscated his guns and detained him so he couldn't even go in and save his wife. I have the highest regard for law enforcement, but in those cases, it's hard to defend them. When seconds count, police are only minutes away, and you need to understand you are your own first responder. You are your own first responder. Police and EMS are second responders. I don't care what they tell you. And I have the highest respect for police officers that would put their life on the line for you, and they don't even know you. But they're there in time to mop up the blood, take evidence, and hopefully arrest someone. You're the one that can be there on the spot. Police were estimated 5 to 7 minutes behind me. And this is part of what our Second Amendment is about, is to be able to respond to danger for you, your community. Respond to the danger. This is the reason we practice. This is the reason we train. This is the reason that we keep our guns ready. We are modern Minutemen and women. Now, we're doing a Texas two-step, as I call it. We take one step forward. Supreme Court has just decided in our favor that they cannot prevent us from getting a permit and carry and protect ourselves. Now we've taken 2 steps back with the new laws that have been enacted that are supposed to make us more safe. Benjamin Franklin himself said, if you give up liberties for security, then you deserve neither liberty or security. So we have to stop this, led by our own state of Texas Senator John Cornyn, and I have called him out. Look, you probably don't know the history in Texas, but before we had Ted Cruz, we had a lady that was a senator in the state of Texas. Her name was Kay Bailey Hutchison. Kay Bailey Hutchison voted for the Brady bill, and she voted for the assault weapons ban originally. And then she had enough guts to come to a pro-gun rally like this. And we booed her off the stage, and as she was walking away, she's saying, why? Why are you booing me off stage? Is she that stupid? So just recently, I spoke at the Texas Republican Convention in Houston, Texas. Earlier that day, I spoke and I said to John Cornyn on live broadcast, this is your Kay Bailey Hutchison moment. Kay Bailey never recovered politically from this. And this is your Kay Bailey Hutchison moment. This is the end of your career when you negotiate things that negotiate away our rights. It's the end of your career. Later, he walked out on stage and they booed him for a whole 14 seconds. And then when interviewed, he said, I've dealt with angry mobs before. He called us a mob. And my question is, John, the mobs that you've dealt with before, were they Republican convention goers? Were they the people that brought you to the dance? It's time that every time John Cornyn goes to a pulpit, we, the people that brought him, boo him off stage. And it's time for you guys here in North Carolina to do the same to Traitor Thom. It's time for y'all to step up and sound the alarm and demand someone better for North Carolina. I have some charges for you guys right now. I charge you, first, Texas took the lead in pro-gun stance. We passed 14 bills in the state that were signed last legislation session here in Texas. We signed the Second Amendment sanctuary state. That's what North Carolina needs to do. That is stating that the state of North Carolina will not recognize any Second Amendment infringements. None. The federal government can do what they want to do, but North Carolina will ignore it and won't enforce it. We signed constitutional carry. How many people here are for constitutional carry? Let's hear it. Yes. Led by your lieutenant governor that has signed on, Mark Robinson. He is awesome, by the way. He wants constitutional carry. And it's time that y'all stand firm and raise a hand and say, at the state level, if we can't control Traitor Thom at this moment, we'll wait until it's his turn to get him out of office, but the state of North Carolina is going to stand up. Psaki has said, we all know that federal government supersedes states' laws. She is incorrect. She needs to go back and study her social studies and realize that the state has a say over federal government. Anything not enlisted in enumerated in our Constitution is null and void. The federal government has no right to enforce any of this. And I would say when it comes to Second Amendment, the states don't even have the right to infringe upon our Second Amendment because it's part of our Constitution.
It's part of our natural law.
National or state.
Natural. It's ours without a constitution.
Our Second Amendment, it cannot be infringed upon by the state or the federal. It doesn't make any difference. Go back and make sure and understand that when you read our Constitution. Go back and read the Federalist Papers and Anti-Federalist Papers, and I challenge our senators and our congressmen and women in the United States level to go back and understand what the Constitution was and what it was meant to be. And they will figure out real quick that they can't mess with our Second Amendment. It's time, and the GOA fights that fight. And we send a message to the federal government constantly. And we file the lawsuits. You can't mess with our Second Amendment. Let's talk the two-step. Negotiations is not negotiation when everything we do every time we take one step back and we lose rights. That's not a negotiation. We don't get anything for what we're giving up. And we have our backs against the wall. People, we have our backs against the wall. It is time to step up. Can I get an amen? Amen. It's time to call Traitor Thom up for what he's doing. It's time to primary these politicians that don't understand your rights. It's time to stop walking down the socialist path and take our country back, not for ourselves, but for our children and our grandchildren. Ronald Reagan said it best. We are only one generation away from losing our freedom. It wasn't handed down to us, but through the bloodline, but it must be fought for and protected for the next generation to do the same. He said, I don't want to spend my twilight years trying to explain to my children what it was like to be a free nation. Let it never be my generation that failed to stand up for our Constitution and the way our government was formed, and for the lives of the men and women that protected it in the past. Let's not insult that. Let's be the generation that stands up and takes it back at all costs. I need to hear from you guys. Right now, today, I will not comply.
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 Send it as a message to Traitor Thom. I will not comply.
I will not comply.
And he is not here to hear it today, but believe me, he will hear this message. I will not comply. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thank you again, sir. And to finish things up, in addition to I will not comply, I want to hear we will not compromise. So,
We will not
We will not compromise.
when it comes to gun control, we will not compromise. When it comes to our country, we will not compromise. And when it comes to our freedom, we will not